Need a little luxury in your life? That's why I recently treated myself to a staycation at the Inn at 500 Capital. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a special celebration, or just a break from routine, you're going to love their Four Diamond Boutique experience with gorgeous rooms, penthouses, and suites right in the heart of downtown Boise. You'll be greeted with a complimentary drink on arrival, have access to free shuttle service, and even your pet is welcome. And here's an insider tip: book more than one night and save with their weekend escape rate. Book your stay now at inat500.com.
Today on CityCast Boise, an Ada County Highway District Commissioner went on a Facebook rant after lawmakers targeted the agency. So what do these bills mean for the future of biking and walking? Meanwhile, Treefort Music Fest is pouring liquor at Julia Davis Park for the first time, and organizers are expecting more attendees than ever this year. Plus, a record-breaking 81 degrees. It's Friday, March 28th. I'm Frankie Barnhill in for Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Happy Friday, everybody, and I'm so glad to be here and to be here with Blake Hunter, our Hey Boise newsletter editor. And Blake, before we hit record, we both were commenting on the noises happening outside our respective apartments. Very spring-like sounds.
Very spring. Yep.
I had a leaf blower going. You may hear it throughout the recording on and off. Who knows? What about you?
Well, I've got some construction. Loud trucks as always, living downtown, but mostly it's a lot of construction, as anyone who's been downtown knows. So hopefully you get some good background noise from that.
The sounds of spring, which it definitely felt like spring in Boise this week. So we'll talk more about that. The first thing I want to chat with you about, and really this is just fascinating. There's so many aspects to this. Are these two bills that are making their way through the legislature right now, and both seem to be very clearly targeting the Ada County Highway District, even though neither of them actually, I don't think, explicitly name the Ada County Highway District in them, but we know what's going on here. So both of these bills came from Meridian Representative Joe Palmer, who sits on one of the transportation committees. What are your big thoughts on, just in general, this anti-ACHD push, or this question of who gets to decide how roads, how sidewalks, how bike lanes are deployed, how they're built in Idaho, and specifically in the Treasure Valley?
Well, you kind of got into it right there at the end. This is really about pedestrians and bike lanes and the width, like the number of lanes in roads. So yes, it's applying to the Ada County Highway District, which covers all of Ada County. But this, again, and not to be woe is Boise, but this is really about Boise and specifically, the kind of diversification and urbanization of our transportation methods downtown, especially. So we're talking about bike lanes, we're talking about pedestrian traffic ways, and, narrowing of roadways in particular. And so where are we seeing that happen? We're seeing that happen in Boise. We're also seeing a huge interest in that happening in Boise. For the last 6 months or however long it's been, whenever I think about pedestrian or bikeways, I think back to Open Streets Boise, that event that happened in September or October, that just had way more people show up and way more energy behind it than expected. And so it just reminds me how much Boise is interested in this kind of infrastructure. So that's a little bit of an aside. But the thing that stands out to me here that's new is that one of these bills in particular, it's focused on using highway district funds for the quote unquote primary benefit of motor vehicles, which we've seen before in a bill from 2023. But this time, if you violate this bill, it's a misdemeanor and there's $1,000 fine.
Yeah, to me, you're totally right. The context here is that this is not the first time that Boise and how people move from point A to B in Boise has been something that the legislature has been interested in, as well as specifically how ACHD works. But I think you're right to point out this criminal mechanism. And to be clear, it's who would be at the other side of this, right? It's the elected official. So they're targeting the Ada County Highway District commissioners who would potentially be directing funds not for, quote, the primary benefit of motor vehicles.
Right.
So it's like $1,000 fine potentially.
Up to 90 days in jail.
In jail? Yeah, wow.
It's really bizarre. And, Ada County Highway District, the way that it's set up, and it's such a unique structure anyway. And all the funding, structure of it is also pretty unique. But this in particular is it's just kind of baffling. Like to make this a misdemeanor I kind of almost don't even know what to say about this, because it is just so kind of baldly targeting Boise and, how people want to get around. And a lot of these vast majority of the legislators who are supporting this do not live in Boise. Their constituents, importantly, do not live in Boise. Of course, they represent all of Idahoans in many ways, but they were not elected by the people of Boise who are going to be using this infrastructure.
Right.
And so the huge alarm bell here is about local government and, Republicans in the state house being so anti-federal overreach, any sort of bigger government force reaching in, telling Idaho what to do. And of course, that's a huge part of Idaho's political DNA as a state. And then they're turning around and saying, well, counties, you can't do this. And specifically Boise, you can't do this. So it's really interesting. I wanted to get your take, though, on Ada County Highway District Commissioner Kent Goldthorpe. Had some words. What did you think about this? He went on Facebook and just kind of started talking really, really openly in a way that I haven't really seen from him a lot. I don't know. I haven't really been super tuned into Mr. Goldthorpe's Facebook rants before,
right.
But this was a gem.
You don't stalk his Facebook regularly?
I don't,
Blake? Yeah.
Not regularly.
Yeah, and shout out to Margaret Carmel and Boise Dev who first wrote about this, and so I was like, I need to go see these posts for myself. Yeah, so he went off on Facebook a couple days ago after the bills passed the Senate, or at least one of them the bills passed the Senate a couple days ago, and he called people out by name. He also, I'm just going to read it because it's interesting. So this is him directly now, Kent Goldthorpe. Quote, I'm done with these guys, period. Virtually none of them even read the bill. Even the now hypocrites who always tout their supposed belief in local government voted for it. They voted to make the construction of sidewalks for your kids to get safely to school a crime. I'll be the first in line for that, he says. So, yeah, kind of touching on a lot of the things you mentioned, the question of local control, which, of course, had been Republican orthodoxy for forever. Of course, on this show, we talk often about how, is that something that Idaho Republicans care about anymore? Seems like they don't, at least when it comes to Boise and controlling Boise. And this bill, at least according to Goldthorpe, is definitely an attack on local control. And then, I don't know if you saw the thread, because then a bunch of people commented, including Senator Treg Burnt, who voted for the bills. He's a Republican.
From Meridian in particular, which is interesting.
From Meridian, thank you. Very important. Yep. And he said, quote, I messed up on this vote, brother. I can't recall what I was thinking. And so he admitted that he voted yes, and he didn't mean to vote yes. He wished he voted no.
He admitted that he didn't read the bill.
Correct.
Just didn't read it.
Yeah. Wow. So anyway, as you can expect, that thread went a little wild, and it's fascinating. We'll link to it in the show notes if people want to log into their Facebook and see how this all went down. But clearly tensions are high, and clearly this bill in particular, because of that criminal mechanism, really seems like it has crossed a line that previous attempts to control ACHD had not. So, gosh, I don't know. What else are you thinking about this? How does this play out from here?
Yeah, I mean, the question of how it plays out from here is tough because, I mean, I don't necessarily see what's going to stop these bills from advancing, and Governor Little probably signing them. One of the other things that this makes me think about is this just feels like a repeat from last year where, 2 years ago, the Boise City Council put a lot of effort into protecting renter rights and put together three really solid, had a lot of public support, renter ordinances. There was, of course, some landlord opposition, but actually a lot of landlords came forward and said, we support these. We don't need to get back in the weeds of what those were in particular, partially because the next, 6 months later, the legislature came in and just gutted all of those, essentially, just immediately. And so this feels like the same thing because last year, ACHD and the city, Capital City Development Corps and the city of Boise put a lot of effort into redesigning the State Street, particularly between 8th and 14th Streets and further, further westward on State Street as well. And that includes the narrowing, a reduction of lanes on State Street. This would reverse that again. And so this is something that literally, it wasn't put to a direct vote.
Sure.
Unless I'm completely wrong about that. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I think I would recall if that had happened. But there was a ton of community input. There was multiple public surveys. There were multiple public hearings about this. And really, they kind of jumped through all the hoops that basically the legislature might then retroactively be able to say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. They did all of those steps, and Boiseans supported these measures. Of course, some of it is still up in the air, and there's some people who still don't really like the idea of narrowing it, as we can see from the legislature. So I don't know. I think that this immediately throws a wrench into plans that are already underway for construction in Boise that are going to impact a lot of our lives.
And, stepping back, as you mentioned, I'm glad you brought up the rental bill, very different thing. But another great example of the city of Boise or the Treasure Valley trying to, govern itself municipally, and the legislature saying, we don't love that. Never mind. You can't do that anymore. And this one in particular, given the growth in the Treasure Valley, transit is one of the biggest puzzles that we know. We actually recently did a little Instagram survey, and basically most of the gripes that people brought up was about how to get around and traffic. So I don't know, Blake. It feels like this is just one more step pushing Boise further away from solving this puzzle.
Therapy isn't just about talking, it's about transformation. And Clover Care Consulting's thoughtful approach can help you embrace yourself with a fresh perspective. Founder Christine Aaron, a licensed clinical social worker and veteran, understands how trauma and the stress of everyday life can weigh on you. From traditional therapy modalities to guided meditation and sound baths, she provides a comforting space where you can explore, heal, and reconnect with yourself. Christine understands that healing isn't just about facing your struggles, it's about feeling supported through them. So Clover Care Consulting will also work to connect clients with community resources and support systems that empower you as you work through broader life challenges. Whether you're looking for a peaceful in-person session in the Treasure Valley or the convenience and flexibility of a telehealth visit, Clover Care Consulting is focused on your well-being. Book your first session today at CloverCare, 4u.com. That's clovercareforyou.com.
Take me out to the ball game.
What are you doing?
Did you know DirecTV has the most MLB games?
So, you're singing.
Yeah, they put your favorite teams front and center right when you turn it on. Buy me some cold cuts and flapjacks.
Those aren't even the words.
I'm allergic to peanuts.
Stream DirecTV, home of the most MLB games. Visit DirecTV.com. Claim based on total games offered on national and regional sports networks. RSNs available with choice package or higher. Availability of RSNs varies by zip code and package.
All right, Blake. The other thing that everyone is talking about in Boise this week has to be Treefort Music Fest, which kicked off on Wednesday night for its 13th year in downtown. I know you went on Wednesday night. What were the vibes? What did you see?
So there's kind of this is a little bit different this year because on Wednesday there weren't any main stage shows.
Right.
The Wednesday of Treefort Music Fest, driving by on Capitol, the whole park is just dark in Julia Davis. So that was kind of interesting. And so then the side effect is that, again, driving down a little bit further on Capitol, the line to Treefort Music Hall was dense and very, very long all the way to the corner and kind of wrapping around towards the warehouse. And then I went to the Shrine later in the night to go see Jessica Pratt. And the line was also really, really long. It was almost the full city block, which, for Boise, that's a really long line.
That's a long line in Boise terms. Yeah. How long did it take to actually get in, though?
Actually, they were really snappy. It took me like 5 minutes. I got separated from some friends, and so I was like, no, but it ended up being fine. That said, I think that, inside the shrine, because they're that like kind of frenetic, like excitement energy of like the first day of the festival, it can't be funneled outside into Julia Davis Park where it's, it's open air, like there's trees, like it's just like fun energy. So all of it was kind of condensed into these like smaller indoor venues and it made for a really weird vibe. I'll say that. I mean, I was like, it was so loud while Jessica Pratt was performing. I was like it feels like we're not in a concert right now.
Loud with people chattering, like just talk.
Just people just chit chatting. But it was actually really fun. Of course, a good first night of the festival. Unfortunately, probably the prettiest night of the festival.
I was just gonna say, weather-wise, I can only imagine. Everyone was like, "Why are we inside? We want to be outdoors." Yeah.
I got the pleasure of emceeing the Treefort like kickoff at the Bishop's house, so over by the old pen. And there was a little bit of wind, but we actually decided to move our like reading and like event outside because it was so beautiful. And then like the sunrise, it was so nice. And just the whole time we were just like, wow, this is the nicest it's gonna be all Treefort. It feels like, but we were still like, it was still really fun, and the weather is like kind of looking up. Like I don't think it's gonna be too terrible. Of course, I'm personally having flashbacks to 2 years ago when it was just rainy in Julia Davis and like
muddy,
Mudfest. And once I'm one of those people that like once I get cold, I'm so grumpy, and I'm like,
sure,
the Women's March Madness is on. I want to be at home watching basketball. Yeah. So, but anyway, it was. I think it'll be a really fun rest of the festival. And we're talking on Thursday, and so the main stage shows will open. So by the time this comes out in the morning, we'll be up to full speed.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's interesting. I'm glad you brought up the park, of course. The move to Julia Davis was a few years ago, right. Speaking of growth, because the once empty parking lot in downtown is no longer empty. It is the what's it called? The Saratoga. I always forget what is that called? The
Broadstone Saratoga.
The Broadstone Saratoga is being built there. So anyway, the fact that they're in Julia Davis again, do you remember, there was this kind of moment earlier this year where the question of liquor sales in the park came up at the city council because Treefort, when it was at that formerly vacant parking lot in downtown, they used to be able to sell hard liquor there.
Right.
But because in the park regulations, the city park regulation, you need to have a specific exception, a specific permission from the city in order to sell. And so the organizers, I talked to Eric Gilbert a little bit about this, organizer of the festival, and, liquor sales are really important for Treefort's bottom line. Not surprisingly, we know that that's obviously like restaurants. That's where they make most of their money is if you can have a liquor license, and it's kind of make or break for a lot of those for that industry. And it's kind of the same to a large degree in entertainment and in festivals and in venues. So they were kind of strapped to just have the beer and wine for the last couple of years. And the city council did end up on a close vote allowing Treefort to have liquor this year in the park, which I think the organizers were, of course, really happy about that decision. And I don't know, whenever I would go to the park, I was like, I want a gin and tonic. And it's like, nope, can't have it.
Yep. Have some beer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that speaks to just like the wider question of, Treefort Music Fest. It's hard to make money in the music industry, especially the indie music industry. And thinking back on how the festival started 13 years ago, it was kind of born out of the Great Recession because there were a lot of people who, if they had their druthers and if the recession hadn't happened, probably would have moved on to larger cities. A lot of artists, a lot of people interested in that world, but instead they were staying in Boise, and maybe they were, even living with their parents for a little while to save money. And it kind of created this atmosphere where there were people who wanted to make art who maybe, because back in those days, Boise was an affordable place to live. That was what kind of brought Treefort into being. And I'm just reflecting on that because it feels so different these days, like everything from the cost of living, the cost for artists to stay in Boise, the cost for a festival like Treefort to go on is very different now. And I just wonder what what you're thinking about as an artist yourself, as someone who cares about the arts, what Treefort's place is these days in your world.
I think that it's interesting that you mentioned kind of the context of like back in the early 2010s when Treefort actually started, because now it feels like Treefort and Duck Club once again are kind of has been pulling Boise out of the COVID-19, not only the pandemic itself, but the kind of economic recession there, where they just were pouring so much money, so much energy, so much time, and giving people so many reasons to get out the door and to go to something and be part of the community. I'm thinking about Flipside. I'm thinking about when they did a Treefort in October, September, another one in March, and then Flipside in September.
Oh, that was so much back to back to back.
It was so much, 3 festivals while taking over the Shrine. So 2 new venues there in the ballroom and the basement, and opening up Treefort Music Fest and Hap Hap Lounge above it. They have been so indescribably busy. I don't even want to know, I would love to be on the fly on the wall. I think everyone in Boise would, to be honest. Just about how in some of those conversations, I know also that their team has grown so much to make all of these things happen. So I don't know. I think that it's really interesting. I would really love to see Boise just really show out with like gratitude for Treefort. And I think that, before I was a little bit just more involved in my own artistic pursuits in Boise, I think that as an artist, it was a little bit easy to fall into kind of like the bitterness of like, it feels like Treefort's almost monopolizing things. And with a little more time and maybe just a little bit more maturity, you just kind of grow to understand, actually, no, they're just putting a lot of work in, and it's up to everyone else to kind of rise up to the challenge and do things of their own, start things of their own, and be part of the solution as well. So I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this festival goes. I think it feels a little bit like a turning point for Treefort, and for some of the reasons that we've talked about, but some other reasons I can't quite put my finger on why. And so I'm really interested to see what it looks like after this. Yeah,
great points. I think overall, Boise needs more freaks and needs more
there we go.
art.
Yeah.
And they exist, certainly. This is the week for the freaks. And I think that's fabulous. So
how many times a year, literally yesterday I was like putting together an outfit and I had like a weird belt and I was like kind of talking myself out of it. And I was like, it's Treefort. Like, how many times a year do Boiseans we like really give ourselves the permission to just do the weird thing? Like, come on, like lean into it.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does without me lifting a finger, so I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland. Watch it now on Prime Video.
Okay, Blake, pick of the week time. And we already mentioned how beautiful Wednesday was in Boise, how honestly hot it was.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was a historic record. According to the Statesman did a write-up about this that day in March tied for a record for the hottest day that Boise's ever seen in March on that day. And it was the second hottest March day since record keeping began in 1877. The previous 81-degree day came on March 29th, 1978. So I mean, great for that first day of Treefort energy. Makes me feel a little something, which is called my climate anxiety. But it was notable one way or another, however you feel about it. It was a nice day on Wednesday.
You really trying to keep your climate anxiety in check for this. I'm like, I promised it was beautiful. I was on a walk this morning. I mean, I know that I sound like I've been tree forting, but obviously also like so many things are blooming right now. I saw a tulip tree in blossom this morning. It was so beautiful.
Yep.
But I mean, just to add to your climate anxiety, I'm sorry to say this, but this does mean that 2 out of the 3 months of 2025 so far, we have a new high, a new monthly high temperature, because that happened in January as well. I don't think it happened in February. I'm not going to look because we're 100%. I'm going to spiral out. But yeah, it's beautiful. We're taking what we can. And hopefully, luckily, the snowpack is still looking pretty good.
I was going to say, I did, to calm my anxiety, I did look at the teacups, how much water's in all the reservoirs and stuff, and it's looking okay. We can talk about that another time. But yeah. And then later this weekend, sorry, Treeforters, that there might be some rain, but it's not horrible. I mean, there's going to be some sun on Sunday, different stuff. So that's kind of my pick of the week, I guess, weather. It's definitely a timely topic. Yeah, for sure. What about you? What's your pick for this week?
Yeah, so I've got another art thing, but it's not Treefort. People know that I've been excited about this. I know that a lot of Hey Boise readers and CityCast Boise listeners have been excited about and loving on the Lit Room in Garden City.
Oh, cool.
Particularly, but also their kind of bigger project that they're now part of with Alliteration Ales and some other folks in Old Speak Bar is what it's called. So I know I just said a lot of names. Remember the name Old Speak Bar, you'll be good. It's on Chinden Boulevard in Garden City, and this weekend is their soft opening. I'm so excited about this. These are the people that have brought you multiple different really good book clubs, including the Boise Band Book Club, have led a lot of efforts to defend the Meridian Library District and, just efforts to fight book bans and support inclusive storytelling, inclusive writing, and just really kind of put a lot of the community on their back. Like one of the community organizations and companies and businesses that I really just feel a lot of gratitude for the work that they're doing locally. And they've got a really cool space in the old, if you remember like the Women of Wool yarn store sign, where that was, that's where this is. They have put so much time and energy into renovating and really tailoring this building. The wall, the bookshelves that they moved in, I forget what they're calling them. It's like something Beauty and the Beast themed because they're massive, like this
really
gorgeous, like floor to ceiling, and then there's beer and there's books and just like really cool community stuff. I know there's a lot of Treefort stuff to be doing right now, but maybe swing by this week, but definitely swing by in the coming weeks and check them out because there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be happening. So yeah, Old Speak, check it out.
I mean, you called it a while ago, but it sounds like Garden City Summer.
That's what I think. Yeah,
one more thing in the column of Garden City Summer coming up, and it always does feel like the Treefort weekend, no matter what the weather is kind of the glimpse of summer, while still giving us some time to still enjoy spring. So. Have a great time this weekend, Blake, and everyone who's out there, whether or not you're going to Treefort. This sounds like it's a really fun time in Boise, regardless of what you're up to. So thanks for coming on the show and talking to me about what's going on this week.
Thanks, Frankie.
Hey, thanks for listening to CityCast Boise. The show was produced by Evelyn Avitia, Lindsay Van Allen, Francisco Kilgore, and me, Frankie Barnhill. Blake Hunter writes our free Hey Boise newsletter, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed, you're really missing out. Our music is by Up Is the Down Is The and All the Kimonos. We'll be back Monday with even more local stories. So, see you then.